Hey everybody, Jim here. Well, I finally went out to the movie theater after a while hiatus, mostly because nothing I've really been interested in seeing has come out, so I've not felt the need to go spend my money in a movie theater. But finally, something did come out that I went to see, and that's the remake of Stephen King's It. From what I hear, this adaptation is of the first half of the It book. I have not read the book, so I can't really compare exactly how it compares to the novel. Hopefully, the Dom will eventually do a Lost in adaptation. I'm sure he will. But I have seen the original Tim Curry miniseries, and my thoughts on that: Tim Curry is a lot of fun and it has kind of entertainment value from that. And kind of see like little kids being scared of a couple things in it, but it's not a very good flick overall. It's pretty overrated. It mostly is just enjoyable for Tim Curry's performance, which is more funny than it is scary. This is a lot better. This movie is a lot scarier. Sarsgaard's Pennywise is a lot more frightening than Tim Curry's. Tim Curry was kind of more fun and theatrical. This is a Pennywise that moves in really freaky ways, that really like bends the laws of physics to really shock the audience. And there's a lot more jump scares in it, which they're well done relatively. It's not, that's a trope of modern horror that's way overdone nowadays. In this movie, they're done way more than the original miniseries, but they're also done tastefully. And another thing, obviously, is the R rating. This film does not hold back on the gore. Obviously, nothing a TV miniseries would offer comes anywhere close to this. This honestly is the best horror movie I have seen in years. Like, I am very surprised at just how good this movie really is. And what really makes it such a good movie isn't just how cool the villain is, but the strength of its child cast. Having a cast full of kids can be the death of a lot of movies. Child actors that perform well are notoriously hard to find. But everyone in this, they really feel spot on. Their dialogue is rather vulgar, but let's be honest, if you've ever listened to real kids, they don't talk like kids on the Disney Channel. They often are pretty vulgar. It's kind of realistic that way. The bully element, who kind of like in the original miniseries was kind of like a 60s greaser. This one's set in the late 80s. Presumably the sequel will be set in the modern day. Instead of just a bully and an asshole like he was there, this time he's much more chilling, much more clearly a psychopath. Then again, you could see him as a psychopath in the originals as well, but this much more so and much more intensely. Everything is just ramped up. Everything is a lot more intense in this movie, and this movie really grips you. And what really makes it work is that you actually care about these kids. You're not rooting for the clown to just kill them all so they'll finally get off screen or anything. They're not just fodder for the monster to kill as in so many lesser horror movies. No, these are kids you actually like. These are kids you actually are invested in, and you're actually rooting for them to win against the monster. And that is what any horror movie needs. If you don't care about the characters, then there's no scares involved. That is what so many, and I mean like dozens of cheap, shitty horror movies miss out on every year. And that's what this movie does so right. And besides that, Pennywise, it both takes advantage of modern special effects that weren't available before, and I knew they would do that, and they did such a good job in really, how do I say that? On top of the strength of Sarsgaard's performance, the way they have him shapeshift, it won't just be like him shapeshifting, it'll make it look as creepy as they can do. The effects artists really did a good job making everything seem unnatural in a good way, because that's what really makes people scared, is a perversion of the normal. Alright, and that's what this movie really gets right. There are plenty of great scares in this movie. Some of the scenes as it goes from kid to kid, and they all kind of experience I guess, psychic visions that Pennywise projects into them, I guess are kind of repetitive, but they're all a little bit different, and you can kind of get the gist that he's preying on whatever their worst fear is, and kind of mentally displaying it in front of them. And of course, controlling your fear is the key to this movie. Basically, it's what this movie's really about. One thing about Stephen King's stories is it's very clear that he has always had a cynical outlook on small-town America, and this movie is no exception to that. It doesn't doesn't like have the overtly anti-religious themes of like movies like Carrie and many other Stephen King works, but it still portrays middle America as very much a dark, sinister place, even for children, and it would often display like adult themes that would creep into our lives once we reach that kind of period of preteen era, you know, when we're kind of starting to really awaken from things. We're no longer children anymore per se, but we're definitely not adults, and we're that age where the adult world starts to slowly awaken. This movie kind of captures that fear and confusion, which, of course, the supernatural element to add that extra sense of horror onto it. Alright, and you also get themes of child molestation, overprotective, overbearing parents, things like that. And, of course, a psychopathic bully. And many kids, probably not to the extreme extent as in this movie, many kids have to deal with a psychopathic bully. About 1% of the population are psychopaths, and every school had that one psychopath who would maliciously bully those he considered beneath him. And this movie really gives you a very creepy vision of that. Everything's well acted. If I could think of any nitpicks to complain about, some of the camera work was a little too erratic, and I always dislike that. Particularly during the end fight with Pennywise. Kind of started to annoy me, hurt my eyes, because the camera kept shaking around instead of really giving you more dynamic shots of what's going on. And that worked in some cases, like when Pennywise is attacking really fast, but during that scene, it just kind of annoyed me. But that's pretty much a nitpick. This is still a downright great horror movie. If you're into Stephen King movies, if you're into horror movies, you are going to love this flick. Another thing, it has a heart to it that is really lacking in horror movies. I've complained before that a lot of horror movies are just needlessly mean-spirited, even more so than a horror movie should be. But this one doesn't have that. It really does, particularly at the end, you really feel like this film had a point, like it had a heart to it, beyond just a bunch of jump scares. That's what makes this a really special and suspenseful work of horror that I recommend anyone go see if you're into these kind of movies, but know what you're getting in, because it is pretty intense at times. Thanks for joining me, everybody, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.